Bapanada everyone! This last week has been incredible as your feedback kinda blew me away. I gotta say a big thank you to everyone who checked out my last video, subscribed and or joined the Discord server. This video right here is the follow-up video, so some things I will say here will make more sense if you have seen the previous video, since this is a series of sorts. I originally planned to make this an area discussion video, and it still is, but as you can see by the title, I wanted to go above and beyond today. So basically I'm going to create a map of PHARLOOM. This sounds crazy, and it is crazy, but I will try my best to make it kinda accurate. Now of course you don't have to take this with a grain of salt. You have to take this with the whole Atlantic Ocean, because we are gonna speculate a lot today. By the way, I will only talk about a few cities, so this will mostly be about areas today, because the cities themselves could be their own video in the future alongside an NPC video, etc. I am gonna make a lot of claims in this video, and so you guys and girls have more of an idea of what I believe. I'm gonna write on the screen how likely certain theories are in my eyes and which theories I just tell you because they sound cool in my head. First up we got the areas we already saw in the demo, but this time it's not because they were in the demos themselves, but Team Cherry claimed that they were early game. This is the biggest evidence we have on where the game starts and what area might come second. And the first area of the game will be the Moss Grotto. Now we start off in it in the Silksong demo area right after the introduction sequence, right after the intro to the game. It is this beautiful place on the very bottom of the kingdom, and we first start in this like kinda uncharted part of it with a lot of wildlife and these moss bees that we eventually slaughter, just like their mother, because we are cold-hearted beings. And then we kinda collapse on the ground right before this NPC. When we wake up, the question is, was that already Moss Grotto? Are there other parts that we see that could potentially be in the Moss Grotto a new area, or is this just part of the Moss Grotto? Or is the Moss Grotto like a bigger King's Pass, and it's like this introductory area that you will not be able to go back until a bit later, and the real area, the real first area, the Forgotten Crossroads, come later? We actually can't be sure of that, but no matter what, the Moss Grotto is the first real area, and we already established that it's going to be on the bottom. But now let's go right into speculation territory and say, where on the bottom is it going to be? Now I'm going to throw on the canvas for this here, for PHARLOOM, which is probably just a blank white background because I'm not an artist, but rather lazy, so it's probably just going to be something very simple. And we've got a few hints, okay? So we know that Hornet falls down after we kind of break open the cage on the bridge and everyone falls down. So we can see that wherever she lands, right above it is not too far from the entrance to the kingdom, right? Is the entrance on the left or on the right? Now on all of the material we've seen so far, the characters go from left to right, so the entrance should be on the left, because they come from the left and go on into the right, into the deeper parts of the kingdom. And another part that supports this theory could be that Mr. Mushroom, a side character in the first Hollow Knight, actually has this continued story, which is going to continue very likely in this game, because why shouldn't it? It's said to be continued at the end of his storyline in the first game, and he also flew from left to right, which is just a tiny hint, but it's enough to say, okay, the entrance to the kingdom is going to be on the left, similar to how it was in Hollow Knight. Now, since we kind of go through the gates and go a bit further into the kingdom, I guess that it's not too far away from the gates where we first drop off the bridge and land in Moss Grotto. So I think Moss Grotto will be around the bottom left of the map. And then we kind of go into the Deep Docks, which is the second area, or is probably the second or third area. And how I think it's going to play out is after the demo ends, we kind of get more of the Moss Grotto, and the Moss Grotto reveals itself to be a bigger area. Then we go into the Deep Docks, which at some points have these hints that they are near the Moss Grotto. There are some leaves around. And the deep docks is an interesting area because the Moss Grotto, while the Moss Grotto is like this probably kind of wild area, the deep docks is kind of different because the deep docks have a purpose in the sense that there are workers there and they are working on something. We don't know what it is. It is probably similar to the Crystal Peaks in that they are probably mining something that the people or the bugs above them need in the Gilded City or in the Shining Citadel. So what it is, I cannot say, I have no idea actually. The thing is, if this is the second or third area, and it's probably going to be nearer to the city a bit because we are going to ascend in this game, which is also important to note, but I think most of you already know that we are going to ascend in this game, whereas in Hollow Knight it was all about descent, and we actually started in Dirtmouth, which was almost at the top of the kingdom. We are going to descend further and further below, and in Hollow Knight Silksong we are going to ascend. Deep docks will already be a bit higher than Moss Grotto and more central, so it is nearer to PHARLOOM'S center, in which we will probably find the Gilded City. Or center to top area, I think, but we'll get into that later. The deep docks are followed by the Forest of Bones, in a way. I don't think that there are going to be two lava areas that look so similar in just two complete different locations. Kind of compare it to the Forgotten Crossroads versus the Howling Cliffs. Both of these areas are very similar in appearance and are also kind of near, at least near each other on the map. The Forest of Bones was originally planned to be in Hollow Knight, yada yada yada. You've all, hopefully, seen the first part of this video series in which we are going to look at Hollow Knight Silksong, all the stuff we've got, so this shouldn't be new info, but the Forest of Bones was cut from Hollow Knight and is now in Silksong. Now, we do not know to what extent they kept the premise of the Forest of Bones. It could also just be the case that the deep docks are their own area and the Forest of Bones was kind of like relabeled to be the End Kingdom. Or for example, that we go through the deep docks first and the Forest of Bones will be much later, because it does seem to be more of a harder area if we look at all the enemies we've seen so far, especially the ones from the Ant tribe. Maybe we're also going to have some access to the Forest of Bones. The Ant Kingdom itself will be sealed off for us for a while. This could also be the case, and we might be able to get back later. Last time I talked about the bosses of this game and I mentioned the soaring warlord on top of a tower and thought it was in Coral Forest. And I didn't find the information. That was the case because I am blind as fuck. I now found the information, going to pop it right on the screen, and I still feel like the warlord is still the boy we see here, and in the background we have the coral forest, we have the leaves, the coral leaves, which will be an interesting art choice, I think. And this might not be the next area after deep docks, because we are going to go into the next area after deep docks afterwards. But I think the coral forest will also be like on the left side, because if we have this watchtower, they need to watch over something, right? And it could just be more on the bottom half to watch over the lowly workers who are struck by the curse to ensure that they are working correctly, but it could also just be on the kingdom's border, and the coral forest could be pretty high up actually, and just have a look on all of the people who come into the kingdom. So maybe a look onto the streets or the main road that leads into the kingdom, for which also we come into the kingdom and, as we know, fall down into Moss Grotto. So I'm just going to pay the coral forest on the left side, but this is one of the things where I have to say it's a far stretch, I know, but we're just having fun here, okay? I just want to paint a pretty map, okay? Just like Cornifer does, okay? If we take a look at the coral forest, besides that we have to agree that it is absolutely beautiful. We also can see that there are some kind of rivers coming down, some kind of waterfalls coming down. This is where this gets very, very far-fetched, but I kind of love this theory. So okay, if a water stream comes down, where does it end actually? Now, we do know that there is an area called Graymoor. And this area Graymoor is one of the biggest in the game and one of the biggest Team Cherry has ever created. So it is probably going to be similar to the City of Tears in size. And this is actually, Graymoor is actually the area which I think will come third, or will be the third main area that we go through on a large scale and spend a lot of time in. We know that this area kind of got infested and is probably not inhabited by a lot of people, but what I thought was that maybe the water streams come down, the waterfalls come down, and maybe they get like dirtied a bit. Some of the waterfalls might come down from the coral forest to the moss grotto, where we see some pools of water, and some of them might go into Graymoor, where maybe some pollution takes place, which could be from the deep docks. As we know, heat, whereas heat there's smoke, where smoke there's kind of ashes and stuff, and it could pollute the water in Graymoor to make this maybe once lush environment really collapse in on itself. But this is just theories over theories, okay? But just bear with me on this one, okay? There's also going to be multiple friends and a foe in Graymoor, so one main boss fight, I guess, and multiple friends which are probably going to be spread out all over the area. Let's go from Graymoor to the bottom. There's this nautical area which has these kind of things. I have no idea what they're called in English. They're near a sea, okay? They're near water and they're always kind of deep down, so I guess this area, this nautical area, I'm going to call it, will be one of the deepest areas, probably even deeper than the moss grotto, because as we know, ascending will not be a one-way road. Sometimes the path to victory won't be that easy and we're going to have to take some extra curves, and one of that curve might be Bonebottom, which kind of looks like it's the city of that area. But Bonebottom is interesting, because we already know some sample music of it. I'm probably going to play it in the background right now so you can all tear up. Yeah, it's interesting because Bonebottom, of course, bottom, it really is kind of an inversion of Dirtmouth, because if we take Hallownest as a person, then Dirtmouth is at its peak. It's kind of the mouth of this whole body that is Hallownest, and Bonebottom would be the bottom part of a person or a bug, creature, thingy. If this whole kingdom of PHARLOOM would be, not saying that it is, but if we were to take it as a whole entity, then Bonebottom marks one of the lowest points. This is just like they did it in Dirtmouth, and they're doing it again here. This is also interesting because we already know there's a quest here by someone named Grumby of Bonebottom. Now I don't know who this is. It could be just that this guy right here is the last citizen of Bonebottom, and it's kind of like an elderbug situation where we have to help him out and he's going to get happier as we move on. What I wanted to say is, now we've got these water streams coming down, and they're coming down to Moss Grotto, and they're coming down to Bonebottom and Graymoor. We've got this nautical area, so maybe these water streams all lead to a sea. Because we know that Hollow Knight was supposed to have underwater elements, but they got cut out as well. For example, the cave to Un was supposed to be flooded, and we were supposed to have to swim through it, but instead it's kind of this weird cave, which is really nice to walk through, but it feels kind of weird. This is what I've been leading up to. I think we're going to have a diving ability in this game, because they wanted to integrate it into Hollow Knight and didn't. So this might be a possibility. And if Bonebottom is at the bottom of the map, and we've got all this water coming down, it has to be somewhere. It might stay up in Graymoor, but we also see in Bonebottom that there's water down at the bottom. So I'm just going to say that we've got actually a sea down there. And because I'm not really that creative. I'm just going to call it the Ancient Sea because I don't know, it's probably got some ancient knowledge somewhere in some, I don't know, in some fucking Atlantis town down there. I don't care. But if we actually got all this water from these waterfalls, from where do the waterfalls come? Number one idea would be that they just originated in the coral forest because it seems to be a lush environment. And this is probably also very likely. But the second thing I'm going to address in just a second actually. So we've also got the Gilded City, and this Gilded City I think will probably be at the center of the map, maybe a bit on the higher end of the map, on the same height as the kingdom's entrance, so the kingdom's main road can lead directly to the city. And the city will probably be at least partially overflowed by the cult that we know captured Hornet and is doing some weird shit. I've got some theories on my own, but this is not the right place to talk about them. Or the right video rather. It is the right place. We are going to have to fight the cult here, and this is probably going to be at the mid game, maybe after Graymoor. Maybe the city stands upon Graymoor. I've got this kind of hierarchy theory in which the deep docks and maybe some other areas have these lowly, deep talk proletarian-like creatures in them that are struck by the curse, and the higher up you get, the better the citizens actually live. For example, in this town right here, not going to talk about towns in depth here, but it seems to be a rather happy place, right? And I think this is in the Gilded City, or it is part of the Gilded City rather, and the only people who have it better are in the Shining Citadel. And now we're going to have the second idea, which is kind of crazy, that this Shining Citadel, which is on the peak of the kingdom, might have a kind of a Blue Lake 2.0 on its left that rains down into the coral forest. Oh, I know how this sounds. It sounds crazy. It absolutely is crazy. I am crazy. Forgive me. But I'm just having so much fun right now, so please forgive me. And this would be kind of a nice metaphor, I think. On top we've got this like paradise-like citadel, which will also be kind of corrupted from within. And maybe this, as I just said, paradise-like thing with a nice sea to the left, which is kind of this fake feeling of paradise, this fake feeling of Eden. And the more we get down, we kind of have the Gilded City, which is kind of all over the place, but mostly positive. And then we got Graymoor, which collapsed in on itself, and maybe some ancient history to it, which we could discover because we do know that it's not just a moor, but much more than a moor. And instead has some dilapidated temples as well. And if we get even further down, we get to deep docks, for example, which is where the workers work as long as they can, as long as their bodies will allow them to. They're in this extremely hazardous environment with all this lava and all this smoke and all these dangerous things, and they are going to die. But okay, I completely went off the rails here. We're going to go back into it. Let's just say the Shining Citadel for one more thing, because in this game we really have the goal to get to the Shining Citadel. And for example, in Hollow Knight we didn't have a goal right at the start. We only had a goal after going to the resting grounds and finding the Dream Nail and having all of the Dreamers displayed on the map. Is the Gilded City actually late game, or is it maybe mid game and we get an entirely different goal in the mid game? Now I personally do think that the Gilded City will be late game and this will be the main objective of the game. But I also don't think that this is going to go down without twists. I mean, come on. It's Team Cherry. Team Cherry already stated right at the release that they haven't shown us a lot of areas yet. I think we've only seen probably half, because there were a lot of areas in Silksong. And if you count all the sub-areas, many of the things I just saw could also just be sub-areas of greater areas, or dungeons or something. And some of these things I will talk about now. First of all, we got this clock tower, which could maybe be in Graymoor. Now, this could also be an industrial plant of sorts. It's just some kind of facility which could be in Graymoor, but I actually don't think so, because it seems to be intact, and the things in Graymoor don't seem to be intact. If we compare, for example, this clockwork tower to the dilapidated temples, which will be in Graymoor, they have some kind of different vibe to them. So this little area right here, in which we get hunted down by this nice fella, I call it the in-between, because we've got this cult member, but in an area which kinda looks like it could be in between what I imagine the Gilded City to look like and the Deep Docks. So right at the merging point of those two areas. Of course, this is just a guess, but this is the in-between. I'm just going to put it in between the two things. Then we've got the stage, which is also kind of funny, because I think this is where we fight Drobio. We have no idea where it is, but it is probably near or in the Gilded City. It is kind of torn down and not in the best state, so I am going to guess that it is outside the city, and because we've already gotten so much on the left side, I'm just going to throw it onto the right side somewhere. But yeah, this is just guessing. So also we've got Semir's neighborhood, which is just a funny way of saying where all the white flowers and white butterflies come from, and the second time we are going to fight Lace. Now we do have no idea where it is, apart from that it is actually at the bottom of something and there's an elevator going up. And there's also a pipe in the background, as I've stated in the boss discussion. So where could the pipe lead to? My guess is the Gilded City, because all the things lead to the Gilded City or the Shining Citadel. So I actually think that this is also, if we take into consideration where the pipe is going, this could be on the nearer side to the Gilded City right here, on the left side as well. And yeah, we might be able to go up to the Gilded City after fighting her here. So then we've also got the Dusty Vault with Ancient Knowledge. This Dusty Vault, we only know that it's going to be in the late game, and there's going to be these kind of enemies. And this kind of reminds me of what I first labeled to be the clock tower. So this could also be the Dusty Vault, because we do have these brownish enemies there, which kind of look similar. If this is a Dusty Vault full of Ancient Knowledge, it's not going to be in Graymoor, I think, but rather on, of course, on the right side somewhere, because I have no idea what is on the right side of this game, or of this kingdom rather. So I'm just going to throw it on there, and probably into a higher place, not so close to the Gilded City, because it would be kind of dumb to put Ancient Knowledge accessible to everyone. And then we've got another thing, which is this underbelly of the kingdom, which I've named that way in the last video because I'm so funny. And I think this is going to be kind of like the stagways, and we actually have to fight our later travel buddy there. We might be able to access some of this game's version of the stagways from Hollow Knight 1. And I don't think that this is going to be a huge area or anything. I think this is going to be a bunch of tunnels somewhere. I don't know if we're going to go into all of them, but this is just my guess for this area now. And I've got two other things which I would like to mention, which are some areas we haven't seen yet, which I think we will see. One is the place where the instruments are created. There are many bells in this game. There's not anything in Team Cherry's games that don't originate from somewhere. The City of Tears got its tears from the Blue Lake. All of the characters in Hollow Knight got their masks from the Mask Maker. There's always some kind of purpose behind everything we see. So I think these instruments, all these bells and harps and violins and needlins we see, aren't just there. They are created somewhere by someone, and I think we're going to see that place. And also, I think we're going to see the new place where the Weavers lived, or tried to live, because who knows if that worked out well. And this is probably also going to be a rather bigger area, maybe even Deep Nest-like, because they don't really seem to enjoy light all that much. And yeah, I'm not going to throw these areas onto the screen, because this would be too much of a stretch for even me. This is all for this video now. I do understand if you think this is too speculative, but what else can we do at this point? The next videos will be less speculative and more informative again, but I just wanted to try something out with this video and just kind of go all out in this kind of direction. There's going to be a lot of wrong in this video and hopefully also a lot of right. When the game comes out, I'm going to come back to this video and actually just see how much I got right and how much I got wrong. And yeah, thank you again for watching. It's been a pleasure as always. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed the map I made, even though it's going to suck ass and look like ass, but yeah, what are you gonna do about it? So yeah, stay safe and I'll hopefully see you in a few weeks.